Hi, welcome to Eye On Sullivan, your weekly look at the comings and goings in Sullivan County. I am Mike McGuire. I am one of the hosts, and I'm joined today and each week by the chairman, Robert Doherty.
Hey, how you doing? I'm Robert Doherty. I'm former chair of Sullivan County Legislature, and we're going to discuss different topics on a weekly basis. This week, I believe the topic is county executive. Will be the main topic. Of course, always other topics get in there. You know, like any other conversation, you have one conversation, you end up having 5 conversations inside that conversation.
So, Rob, we got our first look at snow in the Catskills for the winter of 2024-25. We got a little early snowstorm before Thanksgiving, and so we are rounding into the holiday spirit now.
Well, yeah, I mean, Thanksgiving is, 2 days away. And before you know it, Christmas is here, which is fascinating to me because people are always like, "Oh wow, Christmas is here already." I'm like, same time every year, but
So it's we get ready for Thanksgiving here. There are still a number of our neighbors that are without electricity from that storm. It was an early storm and it didn't last very long, but it did its fair share of damage.
Well, it was a heavy storm. I mean, the snow was very heavy. There was a lot of trees down, especially along the Delaware River corridor. I know Highland was without power till midday Saturday, I believe, and there were some folks up in Lumberland that were out without electricity for quite a while. Which begs the question. I mean, if the weather was colder, people don't have any heat in their house. I mean, there's several people that reached out to me because their representatives were not responding to them. What are we supposed to do? I mean, it's 35 degrees in my house. I have no electricity. What do I do? And you got to kind of walk people through.
We went through the hurricane season not long ago, and we know that hurricane was devastating in Western Carolina, and that's an area that doesn't usually feel the effects of hurricanes. There's a mountain range for one that the weather center, the weather front has to cross. That's quite a distance from the water, which is where the hurricanes come from. But snow and electricity outages in our river corridor, Lumberland, Highland, Tustin, Delaware, and Fremont, is not unique in this county. And the county's response was what?
Well, unfortunately, it wasn't anything. I mean, I know several towns, just recently changed supervisors. They responded poorly because there's action plans in place. They did not follow the action plans. And I know in Highland they were supposed to put out the stop signs because the light in Eldred was out. They didn't put them out till I believe Sunday. I mean, it was too little, too late at that point. The NYSEG had to meet in the parking lot of the school because they had. There was no command center, which they've set up before. The previous supervisor did it. This supervisor did not do it. Up in Lumberland, they had a lot of outages. That's Orange and Rockland up there. So there was a lot of problems.
And to be clear that our county commissioner of public works, Ed McAndrew, and his crew does a great job of getting the roads ready to go. But we're not talking about the road plowing. We're talking about the response.
Correct. So. In every town you have, councilmen, and then you have a supervisor, and every, inch of Sullivan County is covered by a legislator. And so that would be the next level of government that you would go to if your supervisor is not responding to you. In my district, I used to be the legislator there, but now Matthew McPhillips is, and he works for NYSEG, but he was off on a hunting trip. And he had missed the previous meeting also, so he wasn't around and did not respond to calls to anyone that was reaching out.
Now, I remember certainly over the last 4 years when I had the good fortune to work with you and work with the county, when these kind of storms were coming and predicted, we would get together with the public works people and with the county manager just to make sure that everybody was protected, and we still had outages. Let's not fool ourselves. We had outages.
You also have to remember we had a twister come through the county
up in Roscoe.
Yeah,
we had tractors on the roof of the barn.
Oh, remember that? Yeah, that was crazy. So that went through Calhoun and up through Rockland, and which is in Roscoe's in Rockland, and we responded immediately to that. I mean, 12 hours didn't go by, and we were already responding to that.
In fact, I believe that you got together with state and federal officials.
That's correct.
And actually brought money into the county to help with the cleanup and help with the people that were displaced within, I'm going to say days, but I think it was hours.
It was literally hours.
Yeah.
I was on the ground with Mike Brooks, who represented that area, and Marcus Molinaro within 14 hours of it landing. You're elected, and everyone says, it's a part-time job. It's a full-time job. I mean, when the concerns of people, when your people are left without electricity, with nowhere to go, you have to respond to these people. That is your job. And, unfortunately in this one, people didn't respond to people. I mean, there was elderly people in their home with, no electricity, basically freezing.
Yeah, that's that in this day and age is not something that should have to be confronted. And as we've seen at the federal level with the responses, there's no explanation for why the response isn't instantaneous. With the forecasting ability we have,
correct.
They know what's coming.
Oh, you know it's coming.
Yeah.
I don't know if heating centers were needed because it was in the 40s during the daytime. But, people need to respond to the people who are trying. I mean, they don't have a hot meal. They don't have anything, no place to take a shower. There has to be some sort of response to people. You can't just, leave them out there.
And you talked about a command center. The county actually has an emergency response center.
Correct.
That's set up just for these kinds of things. And they even have a mobile command
Correct.
center that the sheriff's office maintains.
I believe that the supervisor in the town of Highland did not call the sheriff's department. They have a dedicated patrol just to that town.
They entered into a contract when
That's correct.
then their board decided that they were going to close down the constables there.
Correct.
And they contracted with the county to provide designated patrols down in that area, and they pay the county
Correct.
for that.
Correct. And so, they never called the county and say, we need this, we don't need anything, apparently. And, it's kind of awkward when, all the services are there, but if you're not using them, it's kind of useless.
Yeah. Well, as you said, in 2 days, we'll be carving a turkey and eating the stuffing.
I will not. I'll be on a boat in Tampa Bay.
Well, and I'll probably be here in my office, but might find a turkey sandwich anyway.
I believe it's going to be 85 degrees that day.
Well, that'll be in Tampa.
In Tampa.
Well, I wish you the best down there. But I guess our thoughts then turn to the next season that rolls in, the end of the parade. Here comes Santa is coming to town.
Yeah, and then it's a whole new year, right?
A whole new year. And so in the next couple of weeks of this podcast, we'll be looking back at the first year of the Nadia Reich administration and see what their goals were for the year and what they achieved. Because they're not asking for votes, so they're not out there telling anybody what they're doing.
Correct. So Nadia Reich, 5 years ago, was the vice chair of the legislature. So you think that she'd be well prepared to go in and to be the chair. I mean, she once served as the vice chair. So then I would imagine that you'd be well informed to roll right into being chair. That's not how our legislature works, unfortunately. It's whoever's, has the most votes.
Without regard for preparation.
Without regard for preparation. And then they become chair and vice chair and all that fun stuff. And some people take the job seriously, and some people don't take the job seriously. I know that when I was there, I took the job seriously. I originally ran for office because the legislature before me, where Louis was chair and Nadia was vice chair, broke the cap their first year and then overspent their revenues the next 3 years in a row. As a property owner, I was like, this is insane. I mean, this is going to be a disaster for us. So that's why I ran for office. And, even though I was called a despicable person as far as the county finances go, we left them in the best shape they've ever been in. They've never been... We didn't bond a dime for 4 years. We paid off, I believe, $27 million early of the bonds of previous legislatures, and our average tax increase, I believe, was like a 1.3 or 1.4. We were financially stable for the first time in the history of the county. We're one of 3 counties to be financially stable, which leads into our next conversation about. I read an article on Mid-Hudson News the other day that they're looking for a county executive.
Well, yeah, it seems like as we look to Christmas and look to the new year, it sounds to me like Chairman Reich has asked Santa to bring her a county executive.
Yeah, so let me read the quote real fast here. Now, this is the quote directly out of Mid-Hudson News. I don't want to misquote anyone. Chairman Reich said, when we go to NYSAC, which is the New York State Association of County Meetings, the county execs are looked upon much differently by the governor than managers. We have a lower status. I imagine this is her perception of it. I don't know if that's the case or not. They are more elevated in their connection to the governor. So that statement there, makes me very concerned.
All right, let's unpack this a little bit,
okay.
because people throw this out, and we just had a presidential election, and
Sure.
and we've heard for the last 2 or 3 weeks, President-elect Trump has been putting his cabinet together. So, for the folks in the county, they certainly can go back to civics class, and they know we've got 3 branches of government.
Correct.
We've got the executive, the legislative, and the judicial branch.
Correct.
Well, in Sullivan County, the judicial branch is primarily taken over by the state of New York, by the Unified Court
That's
System.
correct.
And the legislative branch is what operates our county on a day-to-day basis, with
Correct.
a county manager that's kind of the quasi-executive branch, although there really isn't an executive branch
Correct.
here, because the county is managed day-to-day by the legislature or their employees, which are the county manager, the county attorney, and the county auditor. So why don't you walk us through what the transition will look like? Because we went from a board of supervisors
Correct.
to a legislature, and other than having less people, instead of 15 supervisors, we got to 9 legislators, and each legislator represents approximately the same number of people by population.
It's within 50 people.
Right. So, I mean, to the casual observer, it didn't really look much different, the Board of Supervisors to the county legislature.
That was significantly different, and I'll tell you why. Because the western side of the county that has significantly smaller towns, so it was a weighted vote in the Board of Supervisors. So obviously, back then when the Duggan School was still open, Bethel was about 5,500 people. And then the largest town on the eastern side was about 10,000. So Bethel was still considered one of the big 5 townships.
Right.
But the other 4 townships, Liberty, Fallsburg, Thompson, and Mamakaden, pretty much dictated what went on in the county. The towns on the western side kind of got beat up, and they, even though Walt Sipple and
Andy Boyer,
who
was chairman of the supervisors for a long time.
The Board of Supervisors, both of them very, one end, each of them on each end of the spectrum, but they also were good managers, and they really knew how to run, their townships. But at the end of the day, it was the 4 major townships that dictated what happened in the county. You could sit there and placate them all day long. At the end of the day, the 4 big townships can say, this is what we want to happen, and that's what was going to happen.
Which is not what we strive for in a representative republic type of a situation.
Not at all.
That's why we have an electoral college right
Correct.
now, so that we don't have New York and California choosing our presidents.
Correct.
So we made that move, that transition, so that you have 9 equal legislators.
Correct.
Okay. Now, how will that change if we go to a county executive from the county manager? I mean, sounds like that Chairman Reich is concerned about status, because I know that we've had legislators here recently that were, at least they would proclaim that they were very close to the governor and could call a governor on their cell phone.
Correct.
So what's it going to look like now?
So before we get into this conversation, I want everyone to understand, nobody is coming to save us. We have to do that through our local governments. That's what's going to save us. By electing people who make smart fiscal decisions, that's what's going to save us from, to sit there. What Nadia Reich is asking for is to have a better, to lay at the feet of the governor and look kindly upon, like we're, some beggar. I mean, basically, you're looking for a beggar. We've talked about it in other podcasts, or we will talk about it in other podcasts, where that's how the college ran. And look at the shape of the college right now. They have a dormitory that's in default, correct?
Correct. And in such disrepair, I don't know that it could be used if it wasn't in default.
Correct. They're under 1,000 students. They're
way under 1,000.
Yeah, they owe the state of New York through NYSHIP $8-9 million, but one assembly seat was controlled by one family for 38 years, and the college is in that shape because they were going to come save that family. The Gunther family was going to come save us. We got some donations, some grants here and there, $750,000 for the nursing program, but that still didn't solve the problem. They still did not fulfill Education Law 6301, which would have gave us, an equal share of the budget on an annual basis. That's what you need to do. You need to control your budget on an annual basis. To sit there and say, someone's going to give us, a grant or a loan or something to save us is the wrong concept.
Now let's take a look at that, because during your administration, you secured $18.5 million to build a terminal at the airport.
I did.
And I'm pretty sure, because I was involved a little bit in that process, that came from the governor.
That did come from the governor. The congressman, Antonio Delgado, when he was congressman, gave us $1 million grant to build a bridge to extend to go over the Neversink River, which gave us 15 more miles of our rail trail. And Antonio was a Democrat, and the governor's a Democrat, and I was a Republican. It's about having a relationship with people. That's what it's about. It's not about, can I have some more, please? I mean, it's about having relationships and understanding where you stand, in your budget process and what you can afford. I mean, before I got to office, they were bonding to pave roads. And they paved the lowest amount of roads they've ever done the 4 years before me. During my years, we did not bond one time for roads, because we did not bond a dime. And we paved more roads than we have ever done before. Plus, we did the construction on the sides of the roads, the culvert boxes, everything else that goes into making roads. Why is that possible? Is it because I was friendly with the governor? I've never spoken to Andrew Cuomo a day in my life.
Or Kathy Hochul. It's about being responsible, and they will invest dollars in you if they feel that your county is in good financial shape. If you're not in good financial shape, they're not going to invest money into you. And we would meet daily with our county manager, Josh Potosik, who, by the way, if people don't know what a gem we have there, it's been something like 8 or 9 years in a row he's been recognized for excellence in the budgeting process. Correct. I never remember him one time saying that he was frustrated about his voice being heard in Albany or anywhere else, or Washington for that matter, because he didn't have the title of county executive.
Not one time.
So that's a very interesting thing. And I might also add that several of the legislators who are still on the county legislature actually voted no on a flat budget that you put up.
That's correct.
And in their comments said because taxes weren't raised enough.
Nadia Reich made that comment. That's a fact. and other legislators have voted no against budgets I put up that got us to the lowest 4 years of taxes, plus paid off $27 million, and I came into office with $14 million in our fund balance and left with $83 million in our fund balance. So not only did I improve the sheriff's department, not only did my administration improve the roads in this county, we were able to pay off bonds early. We were able to, and stop bonding for roads. We were able to put away, close to $68 million.
And detractors might say, well, we got all that money from COVID.
That's not true.
But that was only $14 million.
That was only $14 million.
And that didn't account for even a quarter of the increase in the fund balance. And that money was earmarked for roads.
Correct. So we use that money for roads. We use that money to fix the heating system at the college and the roof at the college.
Right.
Because the state never helped the college.
Correct. So the tax situation was getting under control. You also, I think it's because you're modest, you forget to mention that in addition to all those other fiscal moves you made, you also retired 2 taxes early. Now, folks,
correct.
How frequently do you see a municipality wipe out and cancel a tax? And you did it to 2, right?
We did it to 2. That's correct.
The energy tax,
correct,
and the garbage tax.
That is correct.
So
we did both.
So you had less taxes generating more money.
That is correct, through good fiscal management. So when you ask for a county executive for better status, the reason why we don't have better status with the governor is we're 78,000 people. Okay, so you look to the people to the north of us. They're the county of Delaware. They have 44,000 people, and they have a board of supervisors. But then we're often compared to Orange County. But Orange County is 5 times the size of us.
Yeah.
If you took the city of Newburgh, the town of Newburgh, and Cornwall, that's how big Sullivan County is, population-wise.
And that's a corner of Orange County.
That's just a corner. So
they've got 2 more cities to deal with.
Correct. So when you sit there and say that, it's just silliness to me. You look at Ulster County. That moved over there, and I think within the last decade they moved to a county executive. They have 182,000 people, and I don't think that they're in any better shape because of it than we are. I believe Jen Metzger's the current
county executive.
County executive there now. I will tell you that when she was the state senator, I worked with her several times on electrical issues down in Highland. And she was very responsive. It was not a Republican-Democrat issue. It was like, let's get this thing fixed. And I thought she did a very good job on that. And then when she was out of office, she stayed on the issue, and she improved it greatly. It's what are your representatives doing as far as your assembly doing and your state senator doing that really gets you status? But at the end of the day, it's all about the budgetary process and not blowing your budget on an annual basis and not being able to account for the money that you've spent. That's what it really comes down to.
Well, we certainly see a lot of our representatives during the summer and fall, particularly every other year, because they run 2-year terms.
Correct.
So let's go back, though, to the original discussion. What authority does a county executive have to get things done? I'm not talking about a cocktail party at some meeting that happens once a year. I'm talking about the other 364 days a year when they're managing the day-to-day operation of the executive branch of government, which is all of the departments that our citizens touch on a day-to-day basis.
So one of the things you have to understand is that you are creating another branch of government, right? And I think that gets lost in this whole thing. You are adding another layer of government to this county. So now here's a county that's racked up, other than my administration, is bonded every year. has raised taxes every year, instituted new taxes every term. It's happened for generations now. You are now going to add another branch of government that is not cheap. Okay, it's been estimated at over $2.5 million annually. I mean, I want you to understand how much money that is.
Now, in Orange County, that's probably not that big a deal, given that their annual budget is what in Orange County?
Well, I don't know what their budget is annually, but I think it closes in on $800 million.
And the last year that you were part of the approval process of the Sullivan County budget, where were we?
A quarter of that.
A quarter of that.
Yeah, well, a little bit more than a quarter.
But yet, setting up the office might cost the same whether you're dealing in Orange County or Sullivan County, because you still have to find those professionals to lead the branch of government.
Correct. So obviously there would be an election process, and then what's the salary? I mean, 200 to a quarter. And then they have to fill out their own staff. They get their own attorney. They get their own.
They get a cabinet, just like you were seeing with. I mean, they don't have a Secretary of Defense and state, but they need their cabinet.
Correct. Basically, they fill out their own cabinet. That's correct. And basically, you render the legislature useless at that point.
The budget. That's what they do.
Correct. They, unlike this legislature and past legislatures, who really don't understand the budget process. Most county executives understand the budget process.
Oh, they do. And it's actually the county executive that prepares the budget and
Correct.
submits it for review by the legislature. Now, again, we don't want to get confused with Congress and the state legislature, because the state laws and the federal laws are constantly under review, and so that's a major function of what they do. In the county, how many county laws do we pass on a given in a term?
Not many.
2 or 3?
Not many.
Versus the state and the federal government, thousands.
Thousands. So in a local election, so then, let's be honest. I mean, let's start looking around and who's qualified to do this job now, and in the next 10 years, who's qualified to do the job?
Now let's just drill down on that for a second,
Right.
because if you are starting a college, you can do a nationwide search. If the Center for Discovery opens opening a new hospital, they need a director at the hospital, they can do a nationwide search.
That's correct.
Garnet can do a nationwide search if they had to replace their CEO. But you can't do that with an elected official. They have to be someone that lives in Sullivan County.
That's correct.
And so we're really looking at the gene pool, as it were, here in Sullivan County.
Okay, so if you look at your 15 supervisors and your 6 mayors, that pool, do you want anyone to be your, county executive? Then you start looking at your legislators. Do you want any of them to run your whole county? Okay, these are people who don't read their material now, and now you're asking them to run a whole county. There's a lot to it. I mean, there's a lot of parts to it. When I was there, I mean, to be honest with you, I was a full-time person. I was there, 40-plus hours a week.
40 to 50 hours a week.
I showed up every day. I sat in meetings all the time, meetings that, most legislators don't even know what they were doing. I'd sat there, and when we were doing the plant down in Highland, I sat there with Tom, the county attorney, and we negotiated that contract that saved the town of Highland hundreds of thousands of dollars in levy, because we got them to not claw any money back, and then we got them to go to a 5-year deal at a lower rate than they had done at Hancock and down in Minnesink. Why? Because I know how to negotiate contracts.
And you were right there in the county attorney's library.
Correct.
And we
sat there
and we got it done. In fact, I remember one of the attorneys that were working on it with us said, "Can't ask for 5 years; they'll never go for it."
Correct.
So they'll say no.
Correct.
They want to be good neighbors, and they went for it.
They went for it.
They went for it. It was great.
Yeah, I mean,
you met with the commissioners daily.
Daily. So most of the commissioners are on the second floor. My office is on the second floor. It's very simple to walk around and just chatted up. I mean, I'm still friendly with a lot of the commissioners to this very day. Where we still have conversations. They're more friendly now. Obviously, they're not asking me for money. But
Some of them maybe.
Maybe. But I mean, it's a different aspect of it. This county executive also now is going to negotiate every contract. There's 8 labor contracts in the county. When I was the chairman of the legislature, and I was a full-time participant in that job, we negotiated all 8 labor contracts for the first time in county history in one term. No one got out of my term, my administration, that didn't have a contract. Everyone was negotiated.
Just so you understand that, I was speaking to a gentleman yesterday who is a detective with the NYPD. They just settled a contract. They were 9 years without a contract. You think that's outrageous for the NYPD, but when you came into office, or they had just finished negotiating a 7-year lapse in the CSEA contract, which is our correction officers.
Correct, and it hurt them terribly. You never want contracts to go that long, because what happens is you as the municipality, you cannot afford to fulfill the contract the way it should be filled at that point. Too much time has gone by, and you're looking at different dollars than you were, 5, 6, 7 years ago. So what happens there is they have to take some zeros, which they should never have to take, but they have to take some zeros, and it's all about just settling the contract at that point. And it's very frustrating because in particularly at 24-hour facilities like a jail, there are a lot of issues that need to be negotiated that don't get negotiated because you're so focused on salary. And so you just settle the contract on a salary basis, not on 30 other issues. When I negotiated that contract, I sat down with Hal Smith, who has 40 years experience, 20 years as a CO and 20 years as an administrator. So he really understood both sides of the fence. And Hal Smith is one of the smartest guys you ever want to meet. It's shocking to me sometimes how smart he is. I'm not saying that, I'm not badmouthing him. He is a very intelligent man. And you sit down with him, and he comes to negotiate. He has a legal pad. I mean,
he's ready to go.
Oh, he's ready to go.
He's got that contract by line item.
Correct, and he's ready to go. And you sit down, and what we're able to do, we're able to give them 3% every year. We took off. They used to have the first year was a probationary year and didn't start to their steps. We got rid of that. We had to get to their full pay. They were at 14 years. We brought it down to 11 years. We had a plan to bring it down to 9 and then to 7. We gave them more money, and we gave them a lot of quality of life issues that had not been negotiated with them in close to 15 years.
Now, you said that you negotiated. Now, is that common for the chairman? Is Chairman Reich now in their present negotiating contracts?
I highly doubt that.
I don't think so. And in fact, I think that, as I recall, could be mistaken, but as I recall, we were chastised by some members of the legislature because salaries are the biggest part of the county's budget.
Correct.
And
labor's always, most of the time, labor is your largest part of any organization.
And a happy labor force is important.
It's a productive labor force.
So, as I recall, there were several legislators that are actually still legislating in this county that told the county attorney that they were not to be part of the negotiations and that the chairman of the legislature was not to be negotiating without them.
But these are the same people that let a 3-year contract become a 7-year contract and then hurt the CSEA members, financially by making them take, a couple of zeros in that 7-year term. So, we put it to a vote, and the vote said differently, and obtained the 5 votes, and we negotiated.
And then by this time last year, for the first time in the county's history, every one of our unions had negotiated a contract during your term and had multiple years remaining in the contract so that the county could now manage financially a labor force in terms of the budget process.
Correct. So without knowing your labor dollars, it is impossible to figure out the rest. You need to know your labor dollars in order to be able to manage a municipality. I mean, you look at your local town, I mean, just look at the labor dollars. I mean, you can go online right now and go to wherever town you live in or village you live in and just look it up, and, you will see, what percentage labor is to the taxes that you pay. It's almost always the highest.
And the other side of that is that around the kitchen table, it's very hard for county employees to manage their own homes because they don't know when the contract's going to get settled or what they're going to get paid. So that probably leads to an attrition rate that hurts the county.
Correct, because unfortunately, when you have that, then you're spending more training dollars on hiring more people who are not up to speed that the old employees were up to, and so it's very hard to get the productivity out of those employees moving forward.
So we have about 5 minutes left, and what I want to do is we're going to revisit this, and we're going to watch this and see where the legislature goes with it over the next year or so. Now, to be clear, in order to change the form of government from a legislative form with a county manager to a county executive form of government would require a referendum on the ballot.
Correct.
So that would have to go on the ballot at the earliest would be next November.
Correct.
And then if it passes, then the county executive position would be on the ballot the following November.
You're correct.
So it's at least a 2-year process. But let's just say that Chairman Reich sits on Santa's lap and she gets what she asked for Christmas, a county executive under the tree. What's that going to look like? What should the people of the county expect that would look like, and what would it cost the county?
So what it would look like is, you would be eliminating the treasurer's office, you would be eliminating the controller's office, and you would go to a comptroller, which would be an elected position, and they would have more autonomy than our current
kind of a three-headed monster we deal with right now. We have
Correct.
management and budget, we have audit, and we have treasurer's
Correct.
office.
So that would, in some aspects, that's a better way to go. But again, it's the cost. I mean,
In fact, you looked at that.
Yeah,
at one point.
we did look at that at one point, and Nancy Buck and I, who I respect greatly, explained to me why she thought it wasn't a good idea, and I agreed with her at the end. I mean, people always said I didn't, listen to. I listened to a lot of people. It's just give me bad advice, I won't listen to you. But Nancy Buck gave me great advice, and
you took bad advice. Yeah. You just didn't act on it.
Yeah, correct. So you would have to set up a new office there, and then you'd be setting up, a county executive office, new branch of government, and in our current county building, I don't see where you could put that office. It would be troublesome to find the space to put that office.
Well, that's because geographically, the county executive is going to want to have his cabinet, if you will, around him. He's not going to want to have 3 people in Liberty and a couple of people in a rented building on Broadway. He's going to want to have his team.
Yeah, him or her.
The way we know the Orange County executive, they've got a whole floor on a building.
Well, that's the way it should be, because when you want an answer, and you're dealing in, high finance, you want your answer now.
And you need a boardroom. You need all those facilities for people.
Correct. And there's a lot of times you need immediate information. They do have more latitude in making decisions, but overall, for the cost and considering our limited level of executives in the county, I think you'd be making a big mistake, and it would be very costly for a long, long time.
So it seems the thought would be that we want to go in this position. Our county elected leaders now want to take the county in that direction so that they get more input from the governor. But it seems to me that if we're not bringing back $3 or $4 million a year from the governor, it's a net loss to the county.
Again, no one's coming to save us. We have to take care of our own. We have to manage our budget on a daily basis, not a yearly basis, on a daily, weekly, monthly basis.
Of course, it might get some of our legislators into a fancier cocktail party maybe at the meeting.
Well, that's what it's all about, I guess.
Well, we've come to near the end of another of this episode of Eye On Sullivan. We invite people to tune in each week. We'll be located on Spotify.
Yeah.
So we invite people to tune in. We also can be, people can reach out to us. We'll be launching eyeonsullivan@gmail.com. And as we close out, we wish everybody a happy, a healthy, and a safe Thanksgiving holiday, and start to gear up for the month of December, where we'll have a new budget that'll be passed, and we'll see where the legislature and our towns go with the town budgets. We're going to take a look at that at some of our podcasts as well. And then we will roll into the holidays. So on behalf of Rob Doherty, I'm Mike McGuire. I thank you for joining us for this episode of Eye On Sullivan. We wish you all a happy and safe and healthy Thanksgiving.
Thank you. Good day.